All right, my friends from Econ, a little micro going on today. Welcome. I'm glad that you're here. I know that we kind of were hit and miss a little bit with the reviews for Unit 1 for Unit 2. So I wanted to make sure to have a video for you guys, make sure that you guys have all the information that you need to be successful on that AP exam here. It's coming up in about 4 weeks. 4 weeks! It's almost time. So with that said, let's go ahead and just dive right in. We're going to look at just Unit 1 today. Unit 1, first topic is scarcity. Remember, scarcity is the idea that all individuals, all people, everybody in society have unlimited wants. We all want everything, but we have limited resources to get it. So we have to pick and choose. We have to make choices. So because there's scarcity, that's going to lead us to choices. And how do we make those choices? Well, that's what we're studying. That's the idea of this class is how we make those choices, okay? So there are going to be 4 factors of production that we care about. That's land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. The first one, land, remember that's anything that comes from the earth, anything that's kind of in nature. So it's not necessarily just a plot of land, even though that would constitute land. It could be lumber, it could be water, it could be any of those things that are just kind of found in nature, okay? So that's going to be land. And remember that the payment for land is going to be rent. So land is rent. Labor is going to be what do we input on top of it, okay? What do we add to it to make it something else, okay? And so it's going to be the physical contribution that we put in as human beings. And so the payment for labor is going to be wages. We already know that. You get a paycheck, you know that that's your wage. Our third one is capital. Capital can be split into 2 categories. Physical capital. Physical capital is going to be kind of the tools that we use in order to manipulate the land in order to have like a product. So a saw is going to be needed in order to cut the lumber, in order to make a chair, right? And so that's the physical capital. The machines, the manufacturing equipment, the tools, all those things that we're going to produce goods and services with. Now, the second type of capital is a little bit different. This is human capital. That's going to be the skills that we have innately, or the skills that we have gained, the experience that we have gained by working at a job. This is why people at, say, McDonald's, places where most people could do this job. But why will we give somebody a raise? Why don't we just say, well, if you're not willing to work for this person is, and we just fire people every year and we'll get new people and we'll just keep going. Well, remember that experience of the job, I can do it quicker now, okay? And so I know how to open the register. I know what happens if somebody comes in and asks for this. I know what to do. I know how to fix the ice cream machine. I know how to open and close the restaurant. Okay, I know all that stuff, and that's stuff that sure I could teach to somebody else, right, as management. But why would I want to do that when I have somebody here who already knows how to do it? And so I'm willing to pay them a little bit more for their experience, for their expertise, okay? That is human capital. And then our fourth contribution, our fourth resource is entrepreneurship. And capital, the payment for capital is interest. Sorry, I skipped over that a little bit. But then our fourth and final factor of production is entrepreneurship. And that's going to be the brain power, the idea man, the person who's willing to take the initial risk, okay? And so I am willing to put up this money for this idea, and all of a sudden, years later, it's Apple computers and I have lots of money in my pocket, right? So whatever it is, those risk takers. And the payment for entrepreneurship is profit. So land, labor, capital, rent, wage, interest, and then entrepreneurship is going to be profit. Okay, we don't talk as much about entrepreneurship. Excuse me, I need my Diet Coke. You know how I am. We don't talk about entrepreneurship nearly as much just because it's harder to quantify. Okay, the others are easier to quantify. So we have our factors of production. Now, so what? So what do we care? Well, we care because we want to be able to use these. These are our resources to get our unlimited wants, right? And so that's going to lead us into 1.2. There's 3 questions that are going to be crucial to every single society, okay? And those 3 questions are kind of the big questions for our class as well. That's going to be what is produced, how is it produced, and how are we going to allocate it? Now remember, allocation is going to be how we decide who gets it. So there's a couple different ways, and the first way is going to be a command economy. And so in a command economy, the government is going to be the one who decides what is produced, who is producing it, how it's produced, and who gets it. Okay, that's a command economy. So private property, private business, they're kind of left out on the outside, right? The government is the one who's going to decide all of these things. And so the real incentive here is to do what the government wants you to do, or to be in government, right? Now, the flip one, the one that we're more familiar with, is a market economy. A market economy, individuals are going to own the resources. So individuals are going to answer those three economic questions. Private property is a big thing here. Private business is a big thing here. So when we're talking about this, we're looking at people, regular people, you and me, are going to decide what is produced, how it's produced, and how it's going to be distributed, right? Okay, who gets it? Most countries in the world have shifted away from a command economy towards a market economy. That said, most countries in the world have what we're going to call a mixed economy. A mixed economy is going to have characteristics of both a command and a market economy. Okay, so that's sections 1.1, 1.2. Hopefully that wasn't too fast. If it is, pause it, go back. That's why it's a great thing about a video. We're going to move on though to 1.3, and this is our production possibilities curve. Now remember, a production possibilities curve is exactly what it says. We talked about this in class. Sometimes it's nice when things just add up and when they call things what they should actually call them. And this is one of those times. Production. How much can we produce? Possibilities. What is the most we can do? What's the possibilities of what we can do? And in a curve, it's going to be a graphical representation, right? And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look at, I've got a couple things written down for us here. So we've got here, I'm going to go ahead and give you like this, so that if you want to, you can take kind of a screenshot of that so that you can use it on our own. Okay, so we've got here computers and bikes. So that means we can make either computers or bikes or a combination of both. If we make 10 bikes, we can't make any computers, right? If we make 8 bikes, we can make a computer. If we make 5 bikes, we can make 2. If we make 1 bike, we can make 3 computers. And if we don't make any bikes, we can make up to 4 computers, right? Those are our possibilities. It's the most we can do, okay? And so this would be kind of a production possibilities table. Well, for a production possibilities curve, I want to turn this into a graph. And so magically I could just turn it over and smear the marker as I do. And here is our graph. I've got computers on one axis, I've got bikes on the opposite axis. Now remember, it does not matter which is on which axis. This is one of the nice things about the PPC. I can put bikes over here and I can put computers over here. The PPC, it does not matter which is which. Okay, so I've got computers over there, I got bikes over there, and you can see I've got this curve here. It's a little bit sloppy because Mr. C made it, but that's okay, you can deal with it. So what I'm seeing is the most that I can do. Now, I can be in here, I can do this, okay? I'm being inefficient if I'm here, so if I'm at 1 computer and 2 bikes, I'm being inefficient, but it is a possibility I can do that. If I'm right on the curve, I'm being absolutely 100% efficient. I'm using all of my resources to their fullest. And if I'm out here somewhere, that means I probably did something wrong, because at this point, I can't do this right now. This is not possible. This is unattainable. It's impossible, however we want to define that. So inefficient, efficient, unattainable with our current resources. How do we get out here? Well, there's several ways that we could get out there. We have to shift our curve though. And in order to shift our curve, we need to increase the possibilities here. And the 2 easiest ways to do that are through trade or through technology. Okay, so if we are going to increase the technology of microchips or something like that, we can now make more computers. That's going to shift our curve. And now maybe we can pick up this dot that's out there. Okay. So with that said, remember that there's a couple of different ways that our curve can look. If it is a straight line, we have a straight line PPC, that means that our resources are pretty much interchangeable for our 2 things. So this is pizza and calzones is the example I always gave in class. If you're making a pizza, if you're making a calzone, they're basically the same thing. They have all the same resources. A calzone is just a folded over pizza, right? And so if I'm going to do those, what's going to be a straight line? I'm going to give up a pizza every time I make a calzone, okay? That's an easy one. If we have that curve, that bell shape, that concave look, okay? If we have that, what that means is we do not have identical factors of production here. We are going to be we need different resources. And that would be the case here with computers and bikes, right? For computers, we need something very different than we need to build a bike. And so the more computers that we build, the more bike equipment that we're going to have to get out of our shop in order to have computer equipment in there to build those things. And so we're going to lose more and more bikes. And that's the idea here. And that's what makes it that concave curve. Now, one other concept here in 1.3 that we want to talk about then would be that when we're looking at this, we want to know the difference between a capital good and a consumer good. Now, a consumer good, I'm going to consume it. A pizza. After I eat the pizza, you don't get the pizza, right? If you do, it's pretty gross at that point, right? So we're looking at consumer goods are going to be consumed by a person. They're done. A capital good would be the pizza oven. If I make a pizza in the pizza oven, you can come along and still make a pizza in the pizza oven, right? And so it can be used again and again and again. So if you are a country who is concentrating more on consumer goods than capital goods, over time, your curve isn't going to shift very much because you're always just kind of replenishing what's there rather than growing. If you're a country that's going to work more on capital goods, now that's going to start stretching over time because you're able to make more of those consumer goods because you've built more of those capital goods, and that's going to shift your curve a bit further. The one other thing that I guess I didn't talk about here is we can talk about opportunity cost here or here, okay? We're gonna look at it on the graph though, and you can extrapolate this over to the table very easily. But what we wanna look at is, what are we giving up when we decide to make another thing? So remember, opportunity cost is what's our next best choice. And so if we wanna look here, if I wanna go from 10 to 8 here, then I'm going to be gaining one computer, right? And so if I gain one computer, if I'm at 10, and I gain one computer, I lose 2 here. What am I giving up to get that one computer? I'm giving up 2 bikes, okay? What if I do that from 1 to 2? So here, we're here to here, so that's 8 to 5. I'm gonna give up 3 bikes to gain 1 computer. And so we're seeing where our opportunity cost is increasing as we're going, and that's the idea of that concave curve. Okay, so with all of that said, for 1.3, just making sure I talked about everything that I wanted to talk about. I'm looking over my notes real quick. I think we're good. We can go into 1.4, and let's talk about comparative advantage and absolute advantage. Absolute advantage is super, super duper easy. When we're talking about absolute advantage, what we're doing is we're saying who can do more, who can make more of something, okay? So if we're comparing 2 countries, we're comparing Canada and Russia, who can make more cheese? That's who has the absolute advantage, okay? With the resources given, who can do more, okay? So that will be the first thing, absolute advantage. Super, super easy. So here, ignore everything else. I just want you to look at the black numbers here. And again, if you want to take a screenshot, since you can do some work with it later, feel free. Okay, so what we've got is USA can make 4 computers, Mars can make 2 computers, the United States has an absolute advantage. The United States can make 10 bikes, Mars can make 8 bikes, the United States has an absolute advantage, okay? Now, originally, this is how we decided if countries should trade, okay? You're going to, if you have an absolute advantage over something, you're not gonna trade. You're only gonna try and trade with people who do not, okay? And so it's going to wind up with some countries like England during the Industrial Revolution aren't gonna be able to trade with anybody, right? Because they're so good at everything. Now, what we're going to do instead is we want to trade based on comparative advantage. So we have to figure out who has the lower per unit opportunity cost. And so remember to do that. This is an output question. So that means up here, these are computers and bikes, okay? This is the number of computers versus the number of bikes, okay? So that's what we're looking at here for an output question. And for an output question, Our rule is down here, other goes over. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to take, for this box right here, other is 10, goes over 4. 10 over 4 reduces down to 5 over 2. Done. That is our per unit opportunity cost. That means for every one computer that we make, we're going to give up 5 halves of a bike. Okay, that's our opportunity cost. We do the same thing on this side. So our 4 is going to go over to 10. 4 over 10 reduces down to 2 over 5. There you go. Our opportunity cost then of making one bike is 2/5 of a computer. And we see we do the same thing down here for Mars. For Mars, they can make 8 bikes or they can make 2 computers. Well, other goes over. 8 over 2 is 4. That means for every one computer, they're giving up 4 bikes. And over here, it's 1/4. For 1/4 is that 2 over the 8, right? 2 over the 8, 1/4. So for every bike, they're giving up 1/4 of a computer. Other goes over. Now, why do we care? Well, because for comparative advantage, we want to see who has the lower per unit opportunity cost. And we see 5 halves or 4. Would you rather pay, what would be 5 halves, $2.50, or would you rather pay $4? I'd rather pay $2.50. Okay, that's just me. I'm a crazy guy. I would rather get a deal. Okay, here, I'd rather not pay the $4 if I can pay for $2.50. Done. Would you rather pay whatever 2/5 is, that'd be 60 cents, or would you rather pay a quarter? I'd rather pay a quarter, right? Transfer that over. Would you rather pay 1/4 of a computer or 2/5 of a computer? I'd rather pay 1/4. So that means Mars has a comparative advantage in bikes, and the USA has a comparative advantage in computers. The United States should specialize in computers and trade with Mars for bikes. Okay? Now, the last thing that we want to talk about, and this is the thing that everybody hates, right? But it's really, really easy if you stop and think for a second. Okay? So what we want to do is we want to talk about terms of trade. Okay? So terms of trade here, what would be a fair terms of trade? Well, we want a number between 4, because Mars, they can produce computers for 4 bikes. They already can do that. They're not going to pay more than that, right? That would be silly for them to do that. Now, USA, they're going to charge more than 5 halves of a bike because they can do it. They can make that for 5 halves of a bike right now. Why would they ever make them and then charge less than that? Okay, that would be like the equivalent of making an iPhone for $100 and then charging $60. You're not going to do that, right? So we need a number between 5 halves and 4. 3. Done. Okay, 3 is a number between 5 halves and 4. You can pick any number between 5 halves and 4 and be correct. Okay, and that would mean for every computer, they're going to charge this many bikes, 3 bikes. Okay, now things are a little bit different when we talk about an input question, which now says, because I had rubbed it up against myself again, right? But for an input question, what we're looking at here is the number of hours it takes to write an essay versus the number of hours it takes to do the dishes. Okay, this is a lot of dishes, by the way. This is a lot of dishes. Okay, but how many hours does it take to write an essay versus doing the dishes? This is not saying this is how many dishes I can wash. This is not saying how many essays I can write. This is saying how many hours it takes for me to do this one time. Okay, so for an input question, it's other goes under. It does say under, I promise. It says under. Okay, so other goes under. So if we're looking at USA and Mars again, USA takes 1 hour, where it takes Mars 4 hours to write an essay. It takes the United States 2 hours, where it takes Mars 10 hours to do the dishes, okay? So what we're seeing here is our per unit opportunity cost, other goes under. That 2 goes under that 1 now. And so our per unit opportunity cost is 1/2. And then over here, it's 2. Over here, that 10 is going to go under the 4. So it's 2/5. That's going to be 5 halves. Now we want to figure out who has the comparative advantage. We're going to do it the exact same way. Would you rather pay 1/2 or 2/5? I'd rather pay 2/5. Mars has a comparative advantage. Would you rather pay 5 halves or 2? I'd rather pay 2. There's our comparative advantage. And then what's the number between those two? That's our terms of trade. Okay, so that's what we're looking at with comparative advantage and trade. That's 1.4. Okay, and so 1.5, super easy cost benefit analysis. Remember that opportunity cost is the next best alternative. And so we also talked about in 1.5 explicit cost versus implicit costs. Super, super easy. Going to keep it super easy for us. An explicit cost is going to be money right out of my pocket. Okay, so if my son decides he's going to go to college, here's money for tuition, here's money for books, money straight out of my pocket. I'm paying for it. That's an explicit cost. He also then is going to give up his job here at home. He's going to miss time with his brother. He's definitely going to miss his dad because he's going to miss his friends. He's going to miss all these different things. This isn't money out of his pocket, right? But these are things that he's going to give up in order to go to college. And so these are things, the implicit costs that we're talking about. So explicit, money out of pocket. Implicit is that other stuff, kind of the hidden costs of making a choice, okay? And then our final unit is 1.6. This is marginal analysis and consumer choice. And so remember, what we're going to have to do here is we're going to be told, here's some money, okay? So here's $5 is going to be our example. Here's $5. And you are going to a ballpark. And you can either buy nachos or you can buy hot dogs. What are you going to buy and how many of each are you going to buy, okay? So you're getting $5 by your parents. You're not coming home with change because you ain't doing that, right? And so you're going to use your $5. And so you can either buy nachos or you can buy hot dogs. And you want to maximize your money. And so what's going to give you the most happiness, the most satisfaction, the most utility? Okay, and that's what we're going to be looking at here. So for nachos, we can follow our total utility is for one nachos, it's 6. For two nachos, it's 9. For three nachos, it's 10. So that means our marginal utility, so one additional, if I buy my first nachos, our marginal utility is 6. If I buy a second nachos, I'm getting 3 more utils. If I buy a third nachos, I'm getting 1 more util. And the same happens over here with hot dogs. My total utility for hot dogs is 3, and then it's 5, and then it's 6 for our third one. And so our marginal utility is 3, 2, and 1. What's the additional utility that I'm getting from buying 1 more unit? Okay, and so that's our marginal utility. Now, how are we going to decide what we're going to buy? We want to use our marginal utility per price. Remember, buying a yacht and having a yacht might yield me a ton of utility, but it also is going to cost me $500,000. And so that's not going to happen. That's no, by the time I do all of that math, that's not worth it. I'm going to buy a baseball card instead for, $100 and be much happier in the long run, right? So this is what we're looking at here with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to find what is our marginal utility per price. And we set up here, nachos are going to cost us $3. So our marginal utility is 6, divided by 3 is 2. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 divided by 3 would be 33 cents. Okay, we do the same thing over here for hot dogs. Our marginal utility here, 3 divided by 1 is 3. 2 divided by 1 is 2. 1 divided by 1 is going to be 1. Okay, so now we have our marginal utilities per price. And what we're going to do is we're going to compare them. So this is my first trip to the concession stand. I can either buy a nachos or a hot dog. I have a $5 bill. Okay, I can buy nachos and get 2 utils per dollar, or I can buy a hot dog and get 3 utils per dollar. I'd rather have 3 utils for my dollar. I'm going to go ahead and buy a hot dog. I buy a hot dog, cost me $1, I have $4 left. Okay, next inning, I'm going back to the concession stand. I can either buy my first nachos for 2 or my second hot dog for 2. Well, I'm going to buy a second hot dog. And I'll tell you why. If I can get 2 utils per dollar here or 2 utils per dollar here, I'm going to buy this one because this one's cheaper. It's only $1. Okay, I'd rather spend $1 than $3 for the same amount of happiness. And so I'm going to buy a second hot dog. So now I have $3 left. I could buy a nachos or I could buy a hot dog. So I can buy my first nachos for 2 utils per dollar or my third hot dog for 1 util per dollar. Obviously, I'm buying the one for 2. $1, $1, $3. I've used up all my money. I bought 2 hot dogs and I bought 1 nachos. Okay, and that's as simple as that. And again, there it is for a quick screenshot if you're looking to do any of the work with this later. So that's what we're looking at for 1.6 is that marginal utility per dollar is what's going to matter. Okay, so remember the big important thing here is to be able to convert from total utility to marginal utility, and then to be able to make that column that marginal utility per dollar, because it's not always going to be as obvious as what I have it here in the chart. It could be in a word problem where they're gonna say this costs this costs this gives this much utility, this gives this much utility. What should we buy another Sunday or whatever it is, okay? So we want to make sure that we're going to be drawing these things out. Remember, when in doubt, draw it out. That's going to be our rule for the rest of the course. So Unit 1, if you have questions, obviously come in and see me, email me, do whatever you need to do, but find me. I'm here to help. We've got a couple weeks before the exam, but my friends, I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. And my friends, do something for other people today, and we'll see you in class. Be well.